Good morning, everyone. Let me start by giving a shout out to Larry Chang, who really handled all of the logistics for this event. Thank you, Larry. And of course to Robert Nirenberg, who did all the technical work of putting it together. Thank you so much, Robert.
Don't thank you yet. We got plenty of work ahead.
Oh, that's right. So, as usual, we'll be drinking from a fire hose for the next few days. But that's standard practice, and I have to do my part to contribute to that, so, I will. So we're now in our 10th year, and this is our 10th BAS workshop, focusing on kind of the high-end stuff that we'll be getting into. Most of you are familiar with these kinds of slides or the information there, so I'm going to kind of brush through some of it fairly quickly. We're a National ATE Center. This is our last year as a center, but the good news is we were able to apply for and get an award to continue as a resource center. So in the future, we, even though the budget is much smaller, we'll continue these face-to-face workshops. We will probably have to continue the national conference as a virtual. It'll be very difficult to fund that. We just don't have the resource. So it's a razor-thin budget. We'll be trying to write other grants along with Lanny. And we'll do the best we can, but we definitely budgeted for these summer workshops in person. So that's a good thing. And we're in business for another 3 years. Our vision and mission is to really focus on improving the performance of commercial buildings via the work that you all do with your students ultimately, and trying to build a relationship with industry, trying to convince JLL that running high performance buildings is a good thing. CBRE and the other big property owners. And we're also working on a national certification, and I'll update you on that in a few minutes. There are 3 main goals of the BAS Center. One is our work with community and technical colleges across the country, and you in particular, the faculty, engage industry as well, and finally try to strengthen the STEM pipeline with our high schools. Larry likes to tilt at that windmill. We will be hearing from Jenny about a project she's doing in Green Bay, really focusing on trying to build connections with high schools. So that should be very, very interesting. Actually, Ted Wolinski also has a very interesting project. You've been funded by ATE, correct?
I have
as a project? Well, you are. I mean, but it's not official yet.
It's not official. I'm supposed to hear. They told me by this week.
So his project in Milwaukee involves partnering with community-based organizations, the city of Milwaukee, to do outreach to underserved communities in Milwaukee and bring them into BAS and building systems. So we'll be tracking that pretty closely and tracking Jenny's progress as well. Who we are. So as I mentioned, a year ago, Laney College is no longer there. We, due to circumstances beyond our control, had to move the BAS Center out of Laney. I won't go into the details of that. But we found a new home at the California Institute for Energy and the Environment, which is under CITRIS, which is the Center for Information Technology Research in the Service of Society, which is also part of UC Berkeley. So, and you can see our dissemination partners and then our curriculum partners, which is really all of you. And I just wanted to say that I went to Laney last Friday for a retirement party for my electrical instructor, who had really built that electrical department. Laney has a trainee program, so if you go through their program, you can earn trainee credit, and you do an assigned number of hours in the field, and you can sit for the electrician journeyman exam, or journey person, whatever it is, at the end of that period. It's one of the few full trainee programs in California. We also built solar photovoltaics into the program. We built advanced lighting into the program. And as I looked at Faru and her retirement, I thought to myself, this program could very easily collapse. And some of you, Lanny, I think John Zay at Sac City, kind of planned for a successor. But take any one of you out of your college and it puts your program at risk. That's how important each of you is. Career technical instructors are very rare, and there's a reason why you gave up your Memorial Day to travel here. You're learners, you have a heart for education, you're committed to excellence, you're the best of the best, in my view. And that's why BEST is here for you as much as we can. So I really want to honor all of you today and your commitment to education, your commitment to your community, and your work. One of the things that we are trying to do in this session is give people an opportunity to talk about their lesson plans. Some of you volunteered for that. Hopefully, some more of you will volunteer during the National Institute next January, because we really want to begin to pull that quality out and disseminate it. We haven't done that much, and so we're really looking forward to the lesson plans we're going to hear over the next few days, and do more of that kind of sharing. It's very different at UC Berkeley. I can't tell you how good I felt to be on Laney campus on Friday, but fundamentally we will not forget our mission, even though we're located where we are. I'll just skip through this. We do have a strategic focus on high-performance buildings, or trying to promote high-performance buildings. A very important part of the energy mix. And I think with COVID, with the pandemic, it has heightened the importance of building technicians. And of course, heightened the importance of the BAS system and BAS technicians as well, to manage buildings safely. Again, community and technical colleges contain within them the ability to teach at a high level. Although You know, we have seen some erosion of that because of the labor market. We're seeing an evolution away from 2-year degrees and certificates and towards high pressure 1-year certificates. Get them in, get them out. We lose something in that, but there may be ways of keeping students in our programs after 1 year as they go into the workforce. And so, being who we are, community and technical college educators, we have to keep adjusting what we're doing, but fundamentally, we have the capacity to teach very high-level material and really prepare students to contribute in the workforce. We have a lot of resources with BAS Center, curriculum resources. We have some virtual lab tours. We have research reports. You have one of our reports on your table that we did a study of a data center. What we were looking for there, and this goes way back to when BAS was not a center, it was a project at Laney College. We did a series of research studies trying to identify best practices in buildings, particularly looking at the operations side, which no one had done much documentation on that. So do take a look at that. We'll be visiting a data center while we're here. So you may find that interesting to look at. Data centers, the last time I talked to someone who works for Google as a mechanical engineer, Google then was building more than 100 data centers nationally. And I don't know how many data centers there are in the Omaha area, but they're in North Carolina, they're everywhere. Wyoming, they have, even though they don't operate quite the way they used to, cooled to 68 degrees. I think they operate now at a much higher temperature, but still they generate a lot of heat, and you know, everybody thinks that it's the cloud somewhere, but in fact it's just a server farm and a fact of life. We do try to help you if you do write a grant. ATE grants are a tremendous asset. Although California, for example, you've got so much funding for through strong workforce. State of California has pushed enormous funding into the community and technical colleges, community colleges, for program improvement, program development. Other states not quite so well endowed in that respect, but ATE is kind of an R&D type of funding. You're not necessarily going to succeed at everything you're trying to do, but NSF has, ATE has a fail fast mentality. Give it a go, see if it works. If it doesn't, pick a different path, make that work. So you have tremendous flexibility. It's not like a DOL where you got to train and place 100 people, period. They do want that industry connection, and colleges are very well grounded. I'll just put it like that. And you know who the employers are in your area, and you're connected to them. It goes without saying. But you're not bound to a numbers game with ATE. They're looking for you to build your program and make it successful. You have a lot of flexibility in pursuing that goal. So they're amazing grants to get. So many of you have seen this slide before. The technical education challenge, it's not that we're dealing with a lot of new technology, it's that we are trying to prepare the workforce to use the existing technology. BAS has been out there a while, but still, there aren't enough BAS technicians. The BAS installations that are done, I mean, you get some of these guys from the industry drunk or something, and it's like, wow, the state of the industry. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Yeah, right here. So we see two applications of BAS. One is the BAS technician, starting at the installer level, all the way up to the programmer. And then a separate pathway is using BAS in building operations. And if you want to think maybe there's a third pathway, it would be residential smart buildings, smart residences, although I don't think that has really penetrated much beyond the very rich. But people are putting in all kinds of smart devices in their homes. BAS used by building technicians is quite different. It is sort of a supervisory level. They're pulling data out of the system, doing tracking, doing troubleshooting, but it's an extremely important functionality for building technicians to be able to use the BAS system. People are approaching this in different ways. Some people are building BAS courses into their HVAC program. Other people are building a whole BAS program from whole cloth. We encourage both. And a lot of the labs that you'll need are the same. You just need a lot more if you're building the whole program. There are literally thousands of BAS job openings, and you know, we just lost another faculty member out of North Carolina, the PI there. He went back to industry. Industry is a huge lure for our faculty. So I know you are totally committed to what you're doing, and believe me, we appreciate that immensely. I don't know, some people get to do both.
Yep. Still enjoy it.
And you know, early on we tried to get HVAC faculty especially to do summer internships at the national labs. Nobody wanted to do it. They were making too much money in industry all summer, making more in the summer than they made all year as an instructor. So we gave that up pretty early on. But what we're seeing now in BAS is almost a two-tier system where you send the B team in, they kind of get things working a little bit, and then at a regional level, they have an A team guy who goes in after the B team to try to clean it up. And it's a way of having more B team people and a few A team people. And of course, it's not going to work. You know, Robert is holding his head.
I can't even imagine the nightmare that would be. I really can't.
And the truth is, if you're commissioning the BAS system, you're really commissioning the whole mechanical system. So, you know, some of you saw Jay Santos. Jay Santos runs one of those premier BAS commissioning companies in the country. And he knows, but BAS commissioning is commissioning the whole building, frankly. So just a quick update on the High Performance Building Operations Technical Professional Certification. That's a mouthful. We've gone through the JTA process and the DACOM We worked with a scheme committee to develop the qualifications for sitting for the exam. We've completed item writing for the exam, and we are now doing what we call a high-stakes certification pilot testing. And we need volunteers to take the 3-hour test. So please speak to me or speak to Larry if you're interested. Most of you have the qualifications to sit for the test. By high stakes, we mean that you will be conferred the certification, even though it's not fully through the whole ISO, International Standards Organization process. If you pass the test, and we're piloting the questions and piloting the cut scores and all that. So if you get through all that, you will get the certification. So talk to Larry and let him know. We'll send an email out, and I think most of you qualify. You have the industry experience and the educational background, the academic background to sit for the test. So we're at a critical phase in the pilot testing. Now, there's part of the BAS Center that the word sustainability is in there. And so we have to do a little bit on sustainability just to get our juices flowing. This picture that I know Larry likes a lot was taken in 1968. It's called Earthrise, very famous. Most of you have probably already seen it. Anybody not seen that picture? No. And what's really interesting is what Bill Anders said 50 years later. We set out to explore the moon and instead discovered the Earth. And Galen Roll, who was an adventure photographer, claimed that this picture was the most significant picture taken to stimulate the environmental movement in the United States. And within a few years, we had Earth Day in 1970 and so forth.
Half full or half empty?
What did you say, Bob?
I just want to know if it's half full or half empty in the picture. Look at the picture. It's like, holy half. Depends on full of what.
I think hot air would be appropriate.
So a quick update on climate change. When will a psychological tipping point be reached? This is a picture from the devastating fires in Australia from 2019. An unprecedented tens of millions of acres burned across Australia. As many as 500 million animals were killed. Next, in 21, 22, Australia was hit with floods. Some of you have been following the news. India and Pakistan have been hit by an intense heat wave. There was a heat wave in the Northwest, in Western Canada, last year. Unprecedented. The word unprecedented becomes everyday usage now. And interestingly, the third bullet there, Australia really experienced a wake-up call, and it actually elected a guy who is going to make climate change mitigation a priority for Australia. Australia is the world's largest coal producer and coal exporter. Coal is its #1 industry. And the richest person in Australia is a coal baroness, as you might imagine. So this is a huge shift for Australia. The IPCC issued an alarming report in the fall of 2021. Some of you saw that. Basically telling us that time is running out. Build Back Better is stymied in the Senate. We're not seeing it. And some of you who saw Jennifer Granderson's presentation last January, she works in the office of the White House. Pretty, well, she wasn't, in my mind, very convincing about what was going to manage to get out of the Senate. The Senate is where things have gotten tied up for many years. If you get a chance, PBS Frontline did a series on the fossil fuel industry and primarily the oil industry's response to climate change mitigation efforts in the United States. Going all the way back to the 1990s, the Clinton administration attempted to do a national carbon tax. Well, a guy named David Boren, senator from Oklahoma, was the chair of the Senate committee with jurisdiction over that bill. The fossil fuel people got together and went after David Boren. By the time they were finished, he renounced the bill and the bill died. And that initiative that Al Gore was pushing with Bill Clinton died. Now, if you go back, all the way back to 1973, when Richard Nixon vetoed the Clean Water Act, 34 Republicans joined Democrats to override that veto. That's why we have a Clean Water Act today. Where are they now? I don't know. They checked out. They're hiding behind Joe Manchin. In the current iteration of this same playbook, Joe Manchin has gotten all the heat because he's the chair of that committee, and Build Back Better is just dying. Anyway, some other events are happening. The Russian invasion of Ukraine spotlights European dependence on Russian gas. There's a whole history there, grain shipments. I mean, we get this sense of one world, really. That's why I kind of started with Bill Ender's photograph. We're all connected. A lot of movement toward electric vehicles, driven by the auto manufacturers and led by Tesla, which is the world's most profitable company. So I put this in for Bob, just to kind of illustrate the point.
Oh, it's like California on the right there.
No, we're on the left, Bob. And it's kind of a visual representation of Anders' photograph. You saw this, right, Bob? In your, yeah? You're familiar with that. And
We're still not gonna give you Lake Michigan water beer.
it's amazing to listen to climate scientists talking about the melting in the Arctic or Greenland and its effect on Indian monsoons. I mean, it's one global system in so many different ways. Here's another graph you're probably familiar with, Bob. Bob did his dissertation on systems thinking, right?
Yep.
So this is the iceberg principle. We're tracking events, and then below those events are patterns of behavior, systemic structures, and then at the bottom are mental models. And if you look at the mental models that are out there, they drive people's belief systems and their response. Climate change is a myth espoused by environmental extremists. I hear that regularly. I don't know why it's extreme to want to help preserve life on Earth, but, you know, it's all rhetoric. Global warming is part of a natural cycle of Earth's history. New technology or geoengineering even will save us from global warming. All of these, last one, we can mitigate the worst effects of climate change if we act quickly with a comprehensive plan. Those are the optimists. Climate science itself emerged just at the end of the last century. 1990, it came into its own, 1990s. It began with an awareness that the Earth was warming. It's very statistical in its approach. Lots of proxy data from ice cores and tree rings and all kinds of things. Then climate science showed that the warming was human caused, and then scientists began to map the consequences of global warming. And we saw a lot of that in the aughts and in the last decade. And finally, beginning around 2015, there's been a lot of modeling on what are we going to do. And I really encourage you to go back and watch Margaret Thorne from 2021. Her project did a lot of good mapping on strategies to mitigate climate change. And we're going to see more of those kinds of studies. There was another.
It's on the Best Center website.
Yeah.
So it's at least the 2020 Institute.
There's a lot of good stuff on the Best Center website. If you click on the link to get to our YouTube channel, the best way to get to the YouTube channel is through the website. You can find Margaret Thorne there. And there's another session that a researcher from Princeton University did as well. But this kind of work is very important now. Just a quick note on science, and I'm almost out of time. Our field is science-driven. What are its bases? Magnetism, electricity, thermodynamics. Basic physics is what is the root of our discipline with BAS and mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. Environmental policy arises from market failures and externalities. Market failure is the market can't account for the fact that I'm polluting. So, ergo, we have to have regulation. That word that so many people don't like, but unfortunately it's the only tool we have. Science inevitably finds itself at the heart of environmental policy because we're trying to figure out, all right, how much of this nasty chemical can we put on fields or, in the water or whatever. It's science-based. It's all science-based. Can we regulate carbon dioxide? That's the newest challenge. Beginning in the 1990s, back when I described the climate scientists doing their work, industry attacked them. They attacked the science first, and then eventually they started attacking the scientists themselves. Some of you probably remember ClimateGate, in which scientists emails were hacked right before the Copenhagen international meeting. And then we had that big expose, and they just grabbed keywords and phrases from scientists' emails and portrayed them as illegitimate, etc. People like Michael Mann at Penn State have traced those hacks back to the Russians. It was kind of an early playbook that we saw later. They were very much engaged in doing that hacking and releasing those emails to WikiLeaks. And so we keep seeing these same patterns coming up. In a sense, this was the first period in which we saw the beginning of the construction of alternative realities. And today we're really enmeshed with alternative realities. But it really started with that attack on science itself. I'm almost at the end here. What would a U.S. national energy policy look like? Well, back about 15 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C. during the Obama administration. I was told what it would look like, and I was also told that it was secret. So we don't actually have a national energy policy the way Germany does, the way other countries do or strive to have. But those are the three core elements. Energy efficiency in buildings, renewable energy replaces carbon-based fuels, and electrify transportation and buildings. Those are some of the core elements of a national energy policy. My worst nightmare is that we were going to get electric cars, but we'll still be burning coal to power them. So, mitigating climate change is really not so much a technical problem as it is, and you saw this graph before talking about technical education. Now we've just simply applied it to climate change mitigation. The basic elements of climate mitigation are within our technological grasp. It is a political and policy problem just to use existing technologies, including BAS systems and all that they can do for a building.